Hello everyone. I wanted to do a video on the fifth dimension, the fifth dimensional field, 5D density, the new earth, right? Is this real? Is this physical? Is this somewhere where we're actually going to go to? Is it just in a quantum space that we're tapping into? What is this that everyone's talking about, right? I'm going to break it down into the most simple and elementary terms so that we can understand really what this is all about. It is a very complex and yet very simple concept, but we are very linear still because, believe it or not, we're still standing in a third dimensional field, perhaps a fourth dimensional field, but the fourth dimension is almost like a bridge. So you're in between fields. So most of your reality and the way in which you're navigating this reality is in a third dimensional spectrum, which creates linearity. Okay, so there's a time-space continuum in which every now exists in the third dimension. So to try to understand how we are going to be stepping into a completely different dimensional field in the now moment, in some other now moment, and that the entire physical reality is going to be different is very challenging to understand. So I'm going to do my best to break it down, because there is, in this now, a earth plane that is anchored into a fifth dimensional field. She is holding density that is in a fifth dimension, so her body is in 5D. And her external reality is in 5D. Okay, so what she's seeing in her external is 5D consciousness. We are still third dimensional. How do we know that? Because we can see ourselves with matter. Everything is very dense in our external. We are navigating duality and polarity still. So, although we are in a quantum space and we are tapping into and accessing the fifth dimensional consciousness, we are recognizing where we are going, which is in the now moment, where we are right now. So we're not actually going anywhere physically. Everything is happening in the now energetically. But the way you figure out what dimensional field you're standing in physically, just look outside. It's very dense physically. There's matter. Everything is holding a frequency that is matter, right? You can see it. In the fifth dimension, things are more crystalline. So they have a form, but they are almost see-through. They are much more light. It's like they're vibrating. So you're looking at it, and yet it's vibrating. If you've ever been on mushrooms and you've looked at a tree or a plant, you have seen that tree or that plant in the fifth dimension. If you've ever been on ayahuasca, right? They are allowing you to see trees, plants, insects, animals, which by the way hold 5D frequency. They hold a 5D consciousness. You're seeing it as that consciousness because you have elevated your own frequency and consciousness to be able to see what it actually is. So you see it as this vibration, right? It moves, it vibrates, it's almost light. There's not as much density. That is a very good way of understanding what the fifth dimensional field looks like. Now, we are third dimensional bodies and perhaps fourth dimensional bodies. And what is occurring right now is that our bodies are acclimating, assimilating, and anchoring the higher frequency light that is coming in from the sun, not the physical light that you see, high frequency light. And what is occurring is that there is a density that your body holds, a weight to your light. If light, which is energy, which is consciousness, if light spins slowly, it is in a lower frequency. The lower in frequency in energy, light, or consciousness goes, the more dense and the more of a mattered shape it's going to have. If energy, light, and consciousness begins to increase its frequency, speed up, it moves into higher frequencies, which brings it into more of a lighter state of being. Crystalline is next. That's the next state of light going from carbon. And then if it continues to spin, it becomes more light and then more light. So what is occurring right now is if you look at your body, you're very dense. You're very physical. You have a lot of matter still. So your body is holding a lot of density that is third dimensional, perhaps fourth dimensional as well. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the design of this experiment. We have to have come into a third dimensional body. Now, the high frequency light that is moving into your body is slowly starting to anchor down. And when it anchors down, that means that your body has now captured that high frequency and is holding that high frequency, kind of like building blocks. And the more that your body holds those higher frequencies and anchors it in, like drops it in, the more your body starts to slowly shift from carbon to crystal. So it's slowly starting to increase its light. It's slowly starting to increase its frequency. It's slowly starting to move into the higher dimensional realms. But this takes a very long time. Time is relative, and there are many timelines that we can be in based on our choice and our now moment, okay? But right now, this process of ascension, which is anchoring the higher frequencies, releasing more density, more carbon, more matter, and slowly starting to move into a more crystalline state, is what we are going through. However, we are currently dense mattered forms. So we are standing in a third and fourth dimensional field. You look outside at your external reality and you are seeing duality and polarities. You're seeing fear, you're seeing rage, anger, disease, rape, torture, whatever it is, right? Those are lower frequency consciousnesses that do not exist in a fifth dimensional spectrum of consciousness. Every dimensional field has a spectrum of consciousness that can exist inside that field based on its frequency. So if you are holding a fifth dimensional frequency and you have anchored yourself into the fifth dimensional field and you are holding 5D density in your body, that earth plane, that reality, that field will not experience fear in the same way that it's experienced in the 3D. It will not experience lack, rape, torture, murder, depression, illness. Those consciousnesses spin too slow. They can't enter into that 5D field. That's just how energy works. It's not right, wrong, good, bad. It's not a law. It's not like, oh, this is how it's going to go because we're going to say this is how it goes. This is how energy works. If the consciousness, which is energy, which is light, isn't in that frequency, it can't enter into that spectrum. And if it's not in that spectrum, if you're standing in that spectrum, that field, you're not going to experience it. So the new earth is an actual now moment that the earth plane is holding. She is holding in this now an earth plane that is vibrating in the fifth dimension. Her form is holding crystalline matter. She's form, but she's much lighter. Everything on her in that field is in the same frequency as her. And this shift has occurred over the last 20 years. And she is existing in this now moment at the same time in another dimensional realm in the quantum space in the 5D. Everyone calls this the new earth. What's happening with us is that we are still dense. And look at you, right? Your body is going to look like a light form. It's going to vibrate out light. You're going to look at other human forms and see this light coming out of them, and less dense form, more light, as we start to slowly anchor higher frequencies down into the body in order to slowly anchor ourselves into that 5D field, that 5D earth plane that exists. Once we're able to do that, once you can look through your hand and see it clear, your reality and your external, what you see, will be the 5th dimensional earth. It will only be 5D beings. This process takes a very long time, and it is a continuum. It's like a spectrum. So what happens is that we start holding the higher frequencies and we start to tap into that 5D consciousness. We're tapping into it in the quantum field. Why are we tapping into it? Because we are holding those 5th dimensional frequencies in our body now. And the more we hold those frequencies, the more the body has anchored the 5th dimensional consciousness into our bodies, the easier it is to access that dimensional field and the spectrum of consciousness within that dimensional field, because you're vibrating at it. Now all of a sudden you can tap into it. You're like, oh my God, I can tap into that consciousness, which is really just right in here. But it's also in a quantum field. So there's actually a dimensional field around us right now that's in the 5th dimension, 6th dimension, 7th dimension, 8th dimension, 9th dimension. It's all in this now moment, vibrating in a different dimensional field, frequency, different frequency. So we're tapping into it. And we're like, oh my God, this is what the 5D is all about. When am I going to be standing in it? When am I going to be experiencing it? Why am I still seeing the 3D? Why am I still seeing all this horrible stuff happening? Because you're still 3rd dimension. You're still a form. You're still matter. You're still holding a majority of 3D density or 4D density. There's nothing wrong with this, right? Humans want to be able to just jump into this new earth plane overnight and just be done with this. That doesn't happen. It's a slow progression. We slowly shift over and over and over and over again. It would be catastrophic to the human physical form and not the reason why we have chosen to come down here, to just jump over and jump into the 5th dimensional field, anchor our bodies into it and be in it. That's what's so challenging about the ascension, is that it is a slow, steady progression of higher frequencies, integrating and anchoring down into the body in order to start to tap into that higher consciousness, the 5th dimensional field, recognizing Earth is actually holding herself in that field right now. Her form is. The form that we're standing on is the same form that is also holding a 5th dimensional field and vibration and density. Imagine it sort of on top of, right? 1, 2, 3, 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, 5th dimension, all in the now in the quantum space. And so what we have to remember is that the reason we aren't seeing the 5th dimensional field out there, the reason we're not seeing 5D Earth, the reason we're not seeing it in our external is because we are still anchored in the 3rd and 4th dimensional field. And there is nothing wrong with this. The body is doing its best to slowly move us. And the more we move into these higher frequencies and anchor them down, the more we are slowly going to find ourselves experiencing and seeing an external reality that has less density, less duality. It's very slow. It's like watching your hair grow. You don't just wake up one day, you get a haircut one day, and 3 days later you wake up and you say, I want my hair to be long again. It doesn't happen like that. It happens very slowly, very naturally, and before you know it, your hair is growing again, right? Your hair is back to that length that it was. But it didn't happen overnight, and you couldn't see it happening. That is the ascension process. So we have to let go of this notion of, this is a long journey, you guys. This is not going to happen in the next 5 years, right? So it's not, or even 10 years. Look at your body, right? It has to crystalline. And what the Galactic Federation of Light said is that this process of being able to anchor your physical body into that fifth dimensional field where the reality and experience is just 5D. It's like you're watching, you don't ever leave the movie screen. So you never leave this reality. You're just shifting realities. So it's not like you're being picked up and taken to a completely different reality. You don't get picked up and are taken to a completely different plane of existence. The movie screen is in front of you, and that movie screen stays the same. It's just that the movie changes as your frequency changes. And the next thing you know, you are standing in a field that is holding the fifth dimensional consciousness and density. And our role as the way shower, Lightworker, Starseed, Gridkeeper, whatever you want to call it, is to be able to understand this, to let go of when is it going to happen, when am I going to see 5D out there, when is this going to be the new Earth, and recognize that it's already there, that it's an internal shift in frequency, not an external shift, right? So we're doing it internally. We're doing it in the now. And our role and job is to hold over and over and over again these higher frequencies so that we can pull the collective with us. We don't leave the collective behind. That's why you're a way shower. We don't turn our back and say, fuck this, I'm out of here. Excuse my language, right? I don't want any of that 3D. I'm over here. See you later. Unfortunately, or fortunately, our job is to stand with the awareness of the 5D consciousness in our physical forms. We understand what it means to be in a 5D consciousness, your present moment. Your heart is open. You're accepting of all. You're in surrender. You're experiencing unity consciousness or Christ consciousness, which means that all is one, and yet all is individual. All is from the same source spark essence, and yet every single spark is individual and unique, choosing and creating their own experience. 5D consciousness is reminding you that you have choice in every now, that you're standing in a quantum field, that you get to choose what you want to play in while you're standing in a third dimensional field, right? That your heart is open, that you are loving yourself over and over and over again unconditionally through the human experience. Many of us are learning right now how to do these things. We are nowhere near being able to stand in the new Earth 5D field yet. We are tapping into it. We are experiencing it inside of our forms, and we are learning every day, and we are practicing every day courageously how to be in the 5D consciousness, how to be in the 5D field. It takes courage, it takes patience, it takes practice. Your body is telling you, hey, this is where you're vibrating now. You're vibrating in that 5D frequency. Yeah, but I'm standing here and I'm looking out at all this external bullshit going on, and I can see all these things, and it's like there's all this rape happening on the earth plane. There's all this murder. There's all blah, 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 right? Yes. You want to know why? Because you're standing in a third dimensional field. Can you remember the bigger picture? Your role is to hold the higher frequencies first, anchor them into your own form first, so that you can pull that 3D consciousness into the higher fields, the higher realms. Higher is not better, it's just a higher frequency, spinning faster. Your role is not to believe that that is the only reality. Your role is to listen to what is happening to you, feel it energetically. I'm shifting, I'm holding higher frequencies. And recognize that when you do this, when your body starts to hold the higher frequencies over and over and over and anchor them in, guess what's also happening? The lower frequencies, the lower density consciousnesses, they are releasing. How are they releasing? You're feeling them, you're thinking them, you're seeing them, you're being them. Behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, emotions are coming up internally that are holding lower frequencies than where your physical body is going and where it's holding. So it's holding a higher frequency, and the lower densities, the lower frequencies are showing themselves to you. And what does the human do? There's something wrong with me. I'm in a lower frequency. Here it comes again. I hate this, right? This sucks, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, this is the powerful, beautiful, courageous piece of going through the ascension. This means that you're ascending. This means that you're holding higher frequencies. Reframe the way you are looking at every now experience. Reframe it. If you're in a depressive state, if you're feeling depression, that's a consciousness, that's a density, that's vibrating in a lower frequency. See it through those eyes and then recognize the reason it's coming up again is because my body is holding higher frequencies. It's trying to anchor me into the higher realms, and it has to release this. It releases by me being aware of it, feeling it, experiencing it, loving it unconditionally, recognizing what it is, and letting it move through my body. This process happens over and over and over and over and over until we eventually, in some other now, who knows when that's going to be, that's not our role, in some other now, we will eventually, slowly find ourselves standing, physically standing with a 5D body on a 5D earth plane, looking out at 5D consciousness. In the meantime, you are going to be going through that conveyor belt with the movie screen in front of you, watching 3D, 4D, and experiencing the 5D field all at the same time. So imagine that you're standing on the conveyor belt's going that way, and you're standing sideways, right? And your body's starting to increase frequencies, continuing to increase frequencies, and you're slowly moving along like this. And while you do, you're seeing 3D. You're seeing 4D. You're experiencing 5D. You can't see it yet because you haven't anchored it. 4D is like a bridge, right? It's the combination of the 3D field and the 5D consciousness. So the 5D consciousness is entering into your 4D experience, and the 3D field is creating your experience, right? So the 4D is very, very similar to the 3D, yet it's holding higher frequencies that are close to the 5D. So you're being more of these 5D consciousnesses, yet still standing in a field that looks very similar to the 3D. It's a combination, right? So here you are on the conveyor belt walking, and we don't know how long this conveyor belt is. So this new earth that everybody talks about, it is physical, just as physical as this. It's more light, it's more vibration, it's more crystalline, it's got completely different ways of being. But we are nowhere near standing in it yet. So what we have to do is tap into that 5D consciousness and practice being in that 5D consciousness over and over and over again. And the next thing you know, as we pull the collective with us, the transformation is going to happen. It's a transformation like a caterpillar to a butterfly. It doesn't happen overnight, right? Has anybody ever seen the caterpillar turn into the butterfly just like that? No, right? It's a slow process. And the next thing you know, we're going to find ourselves our reality's changing. 2 years later, our reality's changing again. Oh my God, our reality's changing again, right? Very slowly, our external reality is going to start to shift because we're going to start to move into the 5th dimensional field. We're going to start to slowly anchor into it. And it's going to be a slow, precious, great, graceful journey. But it's a completely different reality. So in the meantime, here we are standing on the conveyor belt sideways as we move, We let go of any expectation of when, because it's going to be a while. And we remember the process that's occurring, and that what we're doing right now is we're tapping into 5D consciousness. We're experiencing 5D consciousness. We're being 5D consciousness in our bodies. We're being 5D consciousness right now. We're being New Earth right now while we're still anchored in 3 and 4D. We are being 5D right now before we are anchored down into and holding the density of 5D. If a human is holding the density of 5D, you can see through them almost. They will almost vibrate. You'll look at them almost like it's like there's a light that they are as opposed to a matter. You can see it in certain enlightened human forms that are walking the earth plane. It's almost like when you look at them, you're like, wait, they look like they're a form, but there's so much light coming from them. But even those forms, right, those human forms that are still in this, they may be holding that 5D density in their forms, but they are still experiencing this third dimensional and fourth dimensional field with us based on choice, right? So it's always a choice what dimensional field you're going to jump into. Not to get too complex or complicated, but there will be a now moment in a completely other now moment time. Let's just say 70 years from now, right? Linear time. It doesn't, time frames don't make sense, but let's just say it for the sake of linearly understanding it. 70 years from now, we have been able to pull the collective into that 5D field. We've been able to pull ourselves into that, meaning hold the density of 5D. We've been able to pull a large amount of the collective into the 5D. And so now it is an actual reality and experience for the 5D human to have. There is still a 3D field, a 3D earth plane to be experienced. So the 3D doesn't go away. It's a choice that when you drop into the physical form as a higher dimensional being, you can now choose. Am I going to go into the 3D earth or am I going to go into the 5D earth? Both are the same earth plane, just in different frequencies, in a different dimensional field, holding different experiences, different physical realities, different everything. This is a concept that is really challenging to understand, but it's how the quantum field works. Your vibration and your frequency will create what you see externally, but you have to hold that density as the majority of your frequency. We are not doing that yet. So right now, let's just say percentage-wise, right? We probably have 10% of 5D density in us, and the rest is 4 and 3D density. Let's say 33% of 3D, or no, 30% of 3D. 60% of 4D and 10% of 5D, right? Densities merged in our bodies right now. We've got to get to 100% 5D density. And then we will stand in the 5D field. We will be standing in a dimensional field completely separate from a third and a fourth dimension. Completely separate. So if there is a human that is holding a very high frequency in their body and they're holding a 5D density and yet they are standing in the 3D field, they are choosing that. Just like higher dimensional beings that are working with us, they can choose to come down into this third dimensional field. So this is about the physical body anchoring down the higher frequencies, creating a lighter physical body, a higher frequency form, less density, shifting into a higher dimensional field, eventually anchoring into the fifth dimensional form, earth plane and human form, that is crystalline in nature, so you can basically see through the hand almost, because the body is holding 100% of 5D density. We're not. we have to move through the conveyor belt. And as we do, we are going to see these other dimensional fields. We're going to experience and tap into the 5D consciousness. We're going to practice how to be 5D beings as we are moving towards anchoring the 5D density. And in that new Earth, or in the 5D, it's actually not new because Earth was designed as a 5D form millions of years ago. There is nothing new about the 5D Earth plane. There's nothing new about the 5D human form. The human form was designed in the 5D field as a 5D form. The Earth plane was designed, she began herself in the 5D form, 5D field. We just forgot. That's all. We're just in our amnesia right now, forgetting. Oh yeah, she already existed there. We're just going back there. I did a video on how we fell from the 5D to the 3D. In my YouTubes, you can find it somewhere in there. But we fell. Now we find ourselves in 3D. And now we're moving back. Pain in the ass. Part of ascension, part of free will. But we're doing it. Thank you, light workers. Thank you, way showers. Thank you, starseeds. But this is not an overnight process. And you have to have patience as you're going down the conveyor belt. The Earth plane holding the 5D, what is it going to be like when you're standing in a 5D form and your body is vibrating and holding that 5D density? You are not going to need to eat foods. Your body will be living off of energy. You will not get sick. You will not have disease or aging. You choose when you're going to pass off the Earth plane, like die. There is no dying. There is no suffering during death. It is a choice, and it happens like this. There is no comparison. There is no judgment. There is no better than, less than. There is no eating of any plants, animals, insects. If the human form wants to eat and chooses to eat, they create, almost like hydro plants, right? They create and design their own food to eat. Never animal, never insects. If they do any of it, it is plants and herbs and that sort of stuff, flowers, but they create it. In the 5D New Earth field, right? 5D field, and what everyone calls the New Earth, you manifest your reality in every now. You create everything you want in that now through energy and intention. Anything. We receive information, energy, and technologies through crystals, through energetic temples, through water, through mountains. There are so many ways to receive higher frequencies, receive higher energies, advanced technologies. There is a constant connection to not only your higher self and I am presence, which is part of the 5D human form, but you are in constant communion and connection to the higher realms. You can travel in any now moment out of the 5D field with your etheric body, which is still in the 5D form, and you can visit the ships, you can visit other Earth, planets, you can go wherever you want, and you come back. The way that a human form, you birth a baby is designed and created through intention and energy. It is physical, two bodies coming together, but it is created energetically with light codes by the two humans and the other being that's coming in. It's a three-way communication and agreement. And this being drops in after these two humans have merged energies, merged energetic fields, and intended the desire for a new physical form through light codes that are held in a mini sort of energetic field within the female body. So there isn't an egg and a sperm that creates it. It's created through light codes held in an energetic field. And these light codes hold the human form. It's an intention. We are intending this. When you start to understand how manifestation works, it is just intention and energy. So you intend something, you visualize it and see it, and then you bring energetic light codes to that intention to create it. The form starts to be created through light codes that are designed to create the human form. It's just like a boom drop in, right? And then after that, the two humans connect into the other higher consciousness that's going to choose to drop into that body. The light codes begin to create that 5D human form that's matter and crystalline together. And once it is designed completely into that infant stage, the higher consciousness says, okay, the two humans say, okay, they connect in, and the woman births the baby, very similar to how a third dimensional human births it. However, it happens instantaneously without pain. The woman is brought into a much higher frequency. She's almost vibrating in high frequency light. And you can see this consciousness drop into that human's body and into that infant form. And then it pops out, and it either goes into the higher consciousness either drops into the infant while it's still in the mother or when it comes out. Instantaneously. And so there's this massive, amazing, beautiful ceremony around this woman that is birthing. And she doesn't feel any sort of physical pains or sensations. She's held in a much higher frequency. And it's a really beautiful creation. There is no money, there's no banks, there's no physical exchange whatsoever. It is all service. Everybody is serving everybody else. There's no such thing. It doesn't even make sense. So I could go on and on and on, but what you're realizing is that we are now, in this now moment, in the 3D field, holding a 3 and 4D density form. We're learning how to be the way you are in a 5D field. Right? We're starting to learn. We're starting to recognize. We're starting to practice. And we can't beat ourselves up because it takes a really long time to nail these kinds of ways of being. Right? To remember, oh my God, I'm a creator. I choose. I intend. Right? There are higher aspects of me navigating my every now. Can I hear? Can I listen? Can I receive? Can I keep my heart open to all that is happening, recognizing that it's a quantum field out there, and that as a 3D physical form, I'm going to tap into that 3D consciousness and feel it through 3D emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. But can I also remember that I'm on the conveyor belt and I'm looking out at that movie screen that's slowly shifting me, right? This is a slow process. We don't just jump and we don't leave people behind. Everyone asks the questions, are we going to leave our family behind? No, this is a slow process. This is going to happen for a while. It's stages. And so what are we going to see it in our lifetime? I have no idea. The Galactic Federation of Light says yes and no, meaning it depends on you. It depends on us down here. How much we remember and trust and continue to move forward regardless of what we see externally. If we allow the external to stop us, if we allow the external to tell us what's happening, then we're going to get stalled because we're going to believe what we're seeing externally instead of believing what we're feeling internally. We have to believe our frequency first before we believe the external. If you believe your own frequency first, you will start to recognize I'm holding higher frequencies than the reality that I am seeing right now out there. Remember, your body is still holding a majority of the 3D density still. Imagine it like a big ball of ice, and we have to chip away at that ice, which is the third dimensional density, and it takes a while. But eventually it will be completely broken down, dissolved, and we will be holding 5D density in the form, standing in a 5D field. In the meantime, let's not get distracted by what we're seeing externally. Remember what's happening. Remember what is happening. I'm anchored in a 3 and 4D field, which means that's what I'm going to see out there. I'm tapping into 5D consciousness, which is inside of me because my body's holding it and anchoring it. I am slowly tipping the scales of density in my body. As I do that, lower frequencies, lower density consciousness is going to continue to come up to show me what I'm still holding. Thank God. Let's let that release by loving it. Thank you. Feeling it and loving it. Off it goes. I am slowly starting to practice being in the 5D consciousness state over and over and over again while I stand in the third dimensional field. Hell of a challenge, correct? Very hard. The phase we're in right now is very challenging because we are shifting, we are transforming, and yet we are still seeing the lower frequencies and consciousnesses that we are shifting out of. It can be very trickery. Just because you see the 3D consciousness does not mean that we are not shifting the entire collective. The collective is coming with us. That's why we're here. That's why we're called way showers. That's why we're the light workers, the star seeds, the grid keepers, the blah, 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 blah. We came down into human form to pull the collective of humanity through the physical ascension. And guess who goes first? We do. But we will not be standing and anchoring into the 5D density earth plane, the physical 5D, until a vast majority of the collective is holding those same frequencies. We don't leave the collective behind. That's why right now, this is the most powerful time ever on the earth plane, because it is the first physical, massive purging of the collective. And we are here, capable of holding it, capable of standing in our light, remembering what this is all about, so that we can continue to carry the collective, break the ice in that collective consciousness down, chip away at the ice of the collective, the 3D density of the collective, so that we can remind it, wake it up, move it with us. Got it? Does this make sense? I hope this brings a little bit more clarity to the 5th dimensional field, to 5D Earth, to New Earth. You know, it helps to kind of teach it linearly, but it is quantum. It is a now moment. It's all a now moment. But we are going to be experiencing it linearly for a while we still maintain density, while we shift our density in physical form. Let me know what questions come up about this video down below, and I will do my best to do other videos answering those questions, because I know this can be like a mind freak, like what? And it can be very much of a, oh yes, I know, this resonates. This is exactly how it is. Or it could be a, this chick's nuts and none of that resonates and none of that makes sense and she has no idea what she's talking about, right? All of that is true. All of that exists depending upon your frequency, depending upon your resonance, because we live in a quantum space. That's the greatest gift, right? All teachings are real. Our teachings are true. It all depends on your frequency and vibration. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And I hope this was useful.